So welcome to the AI argument. This is Justin Collery here in the black, and I am Frank Prendergast. How are you, Justin?
Frank, I'm good. I'm good. How are you? I
Pretty
have
good.
something very
Pretty
important
good.
to discuss. Very important.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
AI judges, Frank. We need AI judges.
All right. You're making me nervous already.
Wait till you hear this. Well, so as you know, we took a week off last week because I had a brush with the AI legal system, with the Irish legal system, and as a result of that, I mean, it would be very foolish for me to say that Irish judges could possibly be sexist or racist, but some of them might be sexist or racist. This is possible, right? And it shouldn't be surprising because judges are just people too, and they
That's
have
that's
biases and
fair.
they have, I mean, and they tend to be old. And, the world has moved on since they trained in the Bar Council 150 million years ago. And, they even allow men to marry men these days. Can you believe that? I mean, who allowed that to pass? And so I think what we need is we should be able to have AI judges. So at least then you know what the bias is. And if there's a bias, you can train it out of the system. But at least there's no inherent bias, right? It's just there to listen to the facts and it gives you your judgment. So I think we should be allowed, instead of having to go to some old codger, you can go to him afterwards if you're not happy with the AI result. I think we should be allowed to go to AI judges first, get them to do it. It should be a parallel paralegal system, you might even call it. And I think that will be fair. Are you with me or are you against me, Frank?
I'm going to have to think about this. Let me think about this for a moment. I would I would definitely be very nervous about going to an AI judge. However, having
Really?
said that, well, let's face it, I'd be nervous about going to any judge. So whether they're human or AI, I don't like anyone who has power over decisions that will affect my life. Um, so so would I be more nervous about an AI than a human? I don't know. It's interesting. The only thing right now that springs to mind is that I was having a roundtable some time ago about replacing support staff with AI, and a lot of people on the roundtable were dead set against it. And all I could think was I had been dealing with Facebook support for months, and I couldn't help but thinking that a good quality AI would have done a way, way better job. So,
Yeah, go on. Sorry, finish your points.
so absolutely, you have just had firsthand experience of you've had firsthand judicial experience. So maybe I should defer to your experience in the same way that having dealt with Facebook support, I was like, yeah, just put AI in there, it'd be way better.
Well, I'll give you my argument, right? My serious argument, as opposed to my inflammatory argument, which is when you go into a courtroom, right? It's supposed to be a process, right? But there are lawyers that get paid an awful lot of money, right, to go into court. And it's clearly they get paid a lot of money because they're really good at making arguments and really good at making their points, right? You're more likely to win if you've got a good lawyer. Which brings me then to the point that it's not like the scales of justice are not even, right? In fact, it's three humans that are super important in a courtroom: the judge, your most senior counsel, and their most senior counsel. And whoever can make the best arguments and influence the judge in the right way is most likely to win. But as you say, they have an enormous influence over your life. Is that right? So this is an instance where I think that if you had an AI judge that wasn't able to be influenced by, Councillor Prendergast for the proposition or whatever it does, however it works in court, that instead it was literally just rules based. Here's the facts. It could ask you questions. It can interrogate you, and then it'll come to a decision and it'll give you the reason. And you could go, you could have 10 different people go into that court and you will get exactly the same result every single time, as opposed to the system we have today, which is that what do people say? Oh, well, every time you go into court, you're rolling the dice. Well, that shouldn't be the
Yeah.
case. It should be you should be guaranteed the outcome depending on the facts of the case.
But at least we have the appearance of transparency and the appearance of fairness, because if we take what you're saying to the kind of logical conclusion, very quickly we have kind of like three custom GPTs deciding your fate. And very quickly, you don't even have to go into a courtroom for that. Very quickly, there's just a supercomputer somewhere that suddenly sends you an email saying, oh, by the way, this has been decided for you, which sounds very much like the dystopian future we've seen in some, sci-fi films that we don't really want to emulate.
I guess what I'm saying to you, Frank, is that the future that we have Absent of that is even more dystopian in my personal experience. I would prefer to have the rules-based AI make the rules rather than some old codger that can hardly hear and has probably had, half a pint of port at lunchtime to wash down his pork chop,
Yeah, I'll admit I may be kind of this may be a case of me being like, well, the devil you know rather than the devil you don't know.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see, I can see the logic, certainly.
Yeah. I saved a special story for you, and it's apropos nothing to do with this, Frank. I didn't put it on the board, but just to get you, just to get the juices flowing. So an article in a periodical called The Aviationist, one of my favorites. It's to do with planes and stuff like that. It caught my attention this week.
You're a regular subscriber to The Aviationist, are you?
The Aviationist. I am, yeah. It's one of my favorite periodicals. And in this, the headline is AI flew X-62 Vista during simulated dogfight against a manned F-16. Right, so an AI, and it has a little picture of a jet plane. Right, let me read you a couple of bits. This is brilliant. While safety pilots were on board at all times, the AI agent successfully demonstrated it could safely conduct AI versus human within visual range engagements. It was flying the plane, right? Not only that, right? So they did it, and this people who wrote this particular software, it was in Andrews Air Force Base. They won the 2023 Robert J. Collier Trophy, very prestigious trophy in the aviation industry. So it is. The potential for autonomous air-to-air combat has been imaginable for decades, but the reality has remained a distant dream until now, said Secretary of Air Force Frank Kendall. In 2023, the X-62 broke one of the most significant barriers in combat aviation. This is a transformational moment, all made possible by breakthrough accomplishments of the X-62 ACE team, ACE being Air Combat Evolution. And they go on to talk about how they did it. It did a dogfight. They started off doing defensive stuff, and they went off to do a dogfight of a human against an AI flying a drone. 2,000 feet, they got as close to each other, traveling at 1,200 miles per hour. What do you think of that?
That terrifies me because, I saw another headline during the week, drones, a company developing drones that could make autonomous decisions, which, we all knew this was going to happen. I remember, was it Sam Altman was in front of some committee or other, and the senator was asking him, well, could we automate drones to pick targets? And Sam Altman was saying, well, or it could have been Zuck. I can't remember which one of them it was. Yeah. Was saying, well, that's something we really do not want to hand over responsibility to AI for. And the senator was like, that's not the question I asked. Can it be done? And immediately, I've got alarm bells going off. So when I hear about this kind of stuff, I'm like, this was inevitable. This is going to happen. And it's a very murky area that I can see some of the benefits for, some of the pros for. But, I think if you take a human out of the decision process for essentially killing other humans, I think that is a mistake. I think, in an ideal world, nobody should be killing anybody. But I think handing the decision off to an algorithm is probably not where we want to end up.
What about, Frank, if we had AI judges in southern states of America? Would that be okay?
I'm sorry. Give me a little bit more context for this.
So let's say you have an AI judge, right? And you have O.J. Simpson's in court, who died sadly this week. But O.J. Simpson's in court, and he may get the death penalty. And given that an AI judge is less impressionable and less biased than a human judge, do you think it will be better to have an AI judge pass that sentence rather than a human judge?
Well, okay. Let me ask you a question in response. If we achieve superintelligence and the superintelligence assesses the entire situation on planet Earth and realizes that humankind is actually a scourge, and we are devastating the environment, and we are devastating entire species of animals, and everything would be a lot better off, actually, if it just removed us. Would you support that?
Well, I'd probably have a couple of issues with that. But I don't think the AI, you see, the AI in my examples are being granted autonomy. So I'm suggesting we give it. I think this is a terrible idea, of course, right? Having AIs fire bombs and stuff is horrendous things to. I have a list of places I wouldn't mind, but there's most places I think it will be a bad idea. But we've delegated that power, right? Or we've delegated the power as a society to judges. I don't think we'd ever delegate the power to an AI to wipe us all out. That would be foolish. So I don't think so. I think it's a
no, but as a thought exercise, what's the difference between eliminating us all for the greater good and making a decision just on one person's life purely? It's really just an extension. It's just extending it out to the widest possible parameters.
It is. Look, we'll worry about that when we get there, right? We'll worry about that. I think I'm just amazed. But what I will say about this story, what it highlights to me, now, I have to say there was a line in this story that said that in it, they quoted this, the team made over 100,000 lines of flight critical software. Now, AI doesn't have 100,000 lines of software. AI typically has, somewhere between 1 and 10,000 lines of software and loads of data, loads and loads of data. So this idea that it has 10,000 or 100,000 lines of software makes me think it's not as AI as they're making it out to be. But what really I was thinking though was it shows to be a truth which should be self-evident or obvious, even if you can't see it. It should be hidden in plain sight, which is all of these technologies. I think you said the same thing earlier. All of these technologies, if we think they're amazing, the bits that we see, you should see what the military have, because it's going to be way ahead of anything that you've got. And that story speaks to me. I mean, Tesla have only just released FSD 12, full self-driving, which is a fully AI system, and it works okay for cars driving at 40 miles an hour down a road, right? And that just about works. So these guys have one that can fly a jet at 1,200 miles per hour. That's pretty impressive.
It is. Yeah, it is. So we went really broad there on some of the major kind of huge decisions that we could hand over to AI. I meant to ask you at the top of this how your hackathon went. The last time we spoke, you were heading into a weekend hackathon.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how it went, or what can you share?
Sure. Brilliant. So in true hackathon style, we assembled a team together of business experts and technical experts of various different disciplines, which is, if you're thinking about doing this, that's the great thing about hackathons. And I mean, I've said before, if you want to do something cool with AI, get a couple of tech people who are good at business, get a couple of business people who are good at tech, get a couple of people who are good at user interface and stuff like that. And we assembled a team like that. We worked until about 4:00 in the morning on Saturday in true tech style. And we asked the AI to do something that was totally unfair, which was we asked it to come up with a plan. So if you were lucky enough to become pregnant in the next 6 months, this was going to plan your leave for you, right? Because you have short-term disability and you've got PFMLA if you're in certain states in America, and then you've got your EAP program with your employer, and there's all these different types of things which can play into each other. And if you're doing this in real life, right, there'll be ways that I can imagine I'd create an AI that was a specialist in each one of those benefits. We just got one AI and got it. We used Claude and we got it to work out how your leave would work. And it wasn't perfect, right? We put it together in a weekend, but it was really, really good. And it was great. It was great fun. Definitely is a good proof of the technology. There's so much, like we're just getting started on what this can do. I tell you what I learned, right? Because obviously I've been totally immersed in AI for the last actually I'd say almost a year to the date is when I really went at this, right? Said this is it. Right. So when the very first agents started to baby AGI and all these things started to come out, so that was exactly a year ago. And so my mind has had a whole year of thinking about how you write systems with AI, right? And so it's become second nature. You just think, well, you don't write the software, you just ask the AI to make a decision, And it's interesting to watch other people go through that process of, we need to write a menu system so it can go from here to here to here. And you go, no, you don't need to write a menu system. Just get it to put an ask the human tool in there, and it'll find out what it needs to know. I'll tell you one thing we did actually as an example. Right. So normally, if you're insured in America, and if you work in a company, they got different tiers of insurance. So if you're if you're Frank, right, you're the boss, you get the best insurance, right? And Justin works on the shop floor and my insurance isn't quite as good as yours. So when we make a claim, the first thing that you have to do is figure out, well, what do you do, or which of these classes do you fit into, right? So I was totally unfair to this AI. I gave it a list of classes, and it's only text, class names of text. And the class names were U18, that was one of them, 18-25, that was the second one, 25-40, 40-65, 065. Those were the texts, right? And I had an Ask the Human tool in there. And I started talking to it. I said, can you tell me what benefits? I'm a little bit pregnant. What benefits am I entitled to? And the AI looked at it and said, well, before I can figure that out for you, could you please tell me what age you are? It knew from the text that those were probably ages, and it was able to move on from there. That blew my mind. I didn't expect that to happen. So it was great. Really, really educational, fun, interesting. It was good.
Amazing. So is this something that you're moving forward with?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that part I can't talk about because that is,
Right.
there is,
Sure.
things. Obviously, it was a weekend, right? And it's just to demonstrate what you can do in a weekend, and it was a demonstration of the art of the possible.
Yeah. But certainly,
And yeah,
from your perspective, it was a proof of concept that was very much like if you were in charge of the green or red light, it'd be a green light, would it?
absolutely. Yeah, I would. And what I will say is this: what it also demonstrated is the power for good of AI is enormous because this was done, and I think this might be interesting. Is what we did was we reimagined the customer journey from the very start. So, as an insurance company, right, how do we reimagine? And what's the first interaction? Right, the first interaction isn't even an interaction. It's here, let's have a baby together. What benefits are available to me? Can I get any benefits? And is there an easy way for you to interact with your insurance company in a private way? And then you can imagine the whole journey for a client. You just, think of it from the user's point of view and just plan out the whole journey using AI to remove every part of friction. That was kind of what I saw. And I thought that was really interesting.
Fascinating. Cool. So something else that caught both our eyes in the last week or so was the Microsoft live facial avatars. I'm not sure what the official name. What's the official name they've put on them?
Oh, what do they call VASA 1 was the name of the model. VASA 1.
So these things can basically take like one photograph of a person and in real time animate that face so that they are speaking. And we've talked before about things like HeyGen and other AI video avatars and that, but this is in real time, and it is probably the most expressive.
Now connected to IENA 0160.
The AI is taking over your system. But yeah,
just keep talking, Frank. I can hear you sometimes.
These are the most expressive avatars that I've seen so far. They're incredible.
PC.
Who is this?
And Frank, what did you think of that? Yeah. So what did you think of the avatars, the quality of the avatars, the speech? How did you find those?
First thing I thought was, do you remember that story of the finance worker in Hong Kong who hopped on a video call and transferred 25 million on the say-so of somebody who turned out to be an AI avatar of his boss? So first thing I thought was we are going to see a lot more of those stories because those avatars were very convincing.
They were good. They were clearly AI generated to me. They were the eyes were, in particular, the eyes were a bit funny. And I noticed the head wasn't, the shapes wasn't quite right. But I mean, sure, that'll be fixed in 6 to 12 months, I mean, I obviously look at it from the positive applications. So if you look at help desk applications or, any of those things, I mean, just brilliant. Stick an AI brain on the back of that and you've given it, the words and the voice and the look. I think it's got enormous applications for all sorts of industries.
Yeah, absolutely. But I definitely think that, I'm not sure how we are going to mitigate against the bad actors putting these to nefarious uses. And I assume, I mean, I can only assume that's one of the reasons why, again, this is a research paper. It's not released in the wild yet. And I would assume and hope that one of the reasons is probably that they're thinking, hang on, how do we control this? And probably also comes into play that it is an election year and everyone is hyper conscious of those dangers right now.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, do you know what? It was interesting for me during the week. So I know that you've heard about Udio, which is this new music service, and it's an amazing, right? If I got to write a song about my cat who died, country and western style, because it ate too much lemons, and it was just brilliant, very Bob Dylan-esque. But in the context of what you're saying there, Udio as a company has existed, I believe, for about 6 months, right? Not much time at all. And yet they've managed to create this technology which can do this. And it seems to me like it's getting easier and easier. So even though this is a research project and they're trying to protect people from it, I would actually have an additional concern that, well, it doesn't matter. People are going to learn how to do this, and it doesn't take that much effort if you have the smarts to go ahead and make it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're right. The whole AI music generation space has really been heating up in the last couple of months. And I think this year was always going to be a big year for music generation. And as a result, similarly, a lot of artists are kind of concerned now. A lot of singers, a lot of musicians are starting to kind of go, oh, hang on, AI is coming for our industry next. So yeah, it is very tricky. I mean, Udio is really impressive. I've seen people having a lot of fun with Udio. I haven't seen any incredibly, say, practical applications of it yet. But, the bottom line is, I'm in marketing, and if you're in marketing now, anyone can generate images, anyone can generate music, anyone can generate video. So I normally don't watch a lot of television. I stream stuff. But we're in the States at the moment, and we're watching some of the streaming services that have ads built into them. And I had forgotten how insane television ads are.
Insane annoyed or insane funny?
As in they're just weird. People put together the weirdest marketing materials for television ads. And I was looking at them, and I was looking at a lot of them going, oh yeah, you could do something like that with AI. You could do something like that with AI. So I guess my point is that yes, we're getting to the point now where we're really seeing how many industries could be impacted by this, and that the level of the quality is getting to the point as well where bad actors are going to be also able to do incredible things with it in order to fool us and take our money and scam us and convince us to do all kinds of things.
Don't worry about them, Frank. They'll be fine.
And I'm really excited for all the positive aspects. I still think that there is right now, where we are right now, there's still scope for humans to be in the loop and do incredibly creative things with the tools. But I'm absolutely 100% concerned about what we do to stop a deluge of content that drowns out the good creative content, for one thing, and also a deluge of content that we just can't trust and that we're concerned that we're being taken in. And
I don't know. I don't see that as the future. In fact, I see a different thing happening, and I see a different danger, in fact, right, than what you see. So the Udio thing was the first music thing that I saw that I thought, wow, that music actually is as good as music that I would pay for, right? It was really that good. And then I started to think about, well, how would I monetize this? Like, because they would have to make it free at the moment, right? It's Spotify without the artist is what it is. And I can tell it the music that I like. And if I'm giving it thumbs up and thumbs down, I'm sure I could design a system very, very quickly that would brilliantly predict the sort of music on any given day that I'm likely to like. And it'll just play me music, which is music tailored for an audience of one, which is me, right? Now, I think as a consumer, that's brilliant. And I would love that, right? And it'll be super cheap. I also, as a data person, right, and as a computer engineer, I can tell you that it's another way for me to get into your head. So if you're into marketing, and I now know not just about the things, the websites you look at and what you buy, but I know the music that you listen to. I know the videos that you like to watch. I'm getting a clearer and clearer picture as to who you are and what your thoughts and desires and wants are and stuff like that. And I think actually that's dangerous. I don't particularly, the fear of the jet blowing me out of the water, I don't particularly fear that, but I'm much more fearful of the marketeer getting into my head, inception, the marketeer getting into my head and planting ideas there and making me do things that I don't really want to do.
Yeah. So I mean, we've touched on like so many issues here, right? Just with this one topic. So, but let's narrow it down to, like, you just kind of said that you would be happy to listen to Spotify without the artists, and we've got 5 minutes left, so there's no way we're going to unpack this. But I think this might be something that we should come back to when we meet again next Friday, because I think I've been thinking a lot about, there was the New York Times article about the corners cut to create these AI systems in terms of the training data and in terms of the copyrighted material that is, in the training data. Like, it's not even a maybe, it's in there. Even if the companies are very cagey about actually letting us know what's in there. And there's a legal issue, there's an ethical issue, and then there's the question of, does the means justify the ends? So it is a horrifying thought from one perspective, that we could move to a world where we are listening to AI music and there are no artists. There is no Nick Cave, there is no Tom Waits, there's no Bruce Springsteen. It's just an artificial intelligence. Not only that, but that artificial intelligence is most likely built on the works of Nick Cave, Tom Waits, Bruce Springsteen. So from one perspective, that's terrifying. From another perspective, is it just a sea change? Is it just a point in our development where we have believed that creativity is what sets us apart, and it is, it has become this kind of vital thing. It's almost a romanticized thing, and it's something that we value, and it's something that we pay creatives for sometimes. But the point being, are we just not beautiful and unique snowflakes? The AI can now do it. There is now an algorithm that is creative, that can create. Are we moving into a future where that is just not something that is special or unique to us, and therefore we are just moving beyond creative ownership being something that is as important as it was in the past?
I would say, Frank, to you, right, that what you're doing is you're democratizing creativity, right? So you're putting, because you still have, even with Udio and Mid-Journey and these things, you still have to tell it what you like, right, and whatever. So you're liberating people's creativity. You're allowing everybody to be more creative. And it's not stopping. You're also, I think, in a way, then going back to a time 100 years ago where everybody was creative in their own space, and there was no Tom Waits and there was no Nick Cave, because there was no way to transmit their music, across the world. But there was still musicians who traveled and traveling shows, and people still really enjoyed, the idea of going to a live show and seeing a performer, and AI will never take that away. So I would say that, they'll still survive, there'll still be musicians, and you've the added thing of liberating people's own inherent creativity.
Possibly, yeah. I think we've got two branches that we can't possibly tell which route we're going down, because I think one route is, in one respect, you're absolutely right. AI cannot take our creativity from us. We can still choose to be creative, but I'm talking about in terms of, a career, and I'm not sure that the careers will be there. The only way that they will be there is if we go down the route of AI becomes so prevalent and content becomes so, just such a deluge, that we actually are driven back. And I think you said this in a previous episode, that we're driven back to a more, live format. We're driven back to social activities, and then the artist starts to thrive again. But the other route is that we continue down our kind of self-contained, isolatory lifestyles that we have been going down the path of for some time now, I think, and that everything becomes tailored to us, that we just put on Spotify and listen to AI generated music that there was no human in the loop for. ChatGPT came up with the prompt for the music. And, you know, we come home and we all watch separate, we all put on our glasses and we watch separate films that are tailored for us. So I'm sitting next to Marcy on the couch, we're watching completely different things. You know, that's the other route, where there is no real human necessary for the creative output.
And Frank, that will happen, or something, you know, equally abhorrent to you will happen. And, you know, it'll happen that there'll be a day and you'll be 60 and you'll be giving out about the young people going into their rooms and putting on their head glasses, just the same as your father and your grandfather gave out about you, you know, listening to that wretched loud music in your room, and there was nothing, and just had their father and grandfather give out about how they were listening to the Beatles. Every generation gives out about, you know, the next generation and what they do. And I don't see this as any different.
Quite possibly. Yeah, quite possibly. Okay, I think that's a really good note to end on. I would love, I think, next Friday to come back to more of this, because there's so much to unpack in it.
Yes, we didn't even touch this.
And so, yeah,
let's got the whole legal thing. We've got the whole, you know, who owns the data, who's grabbing the data. Actually, everybody's grabbing the data. It's an enormous area. So let's come back to this on Friday.
Fantastic. Yeah. Let's do it. Pleasure as always, and chat to you in a week.
Frank, have a great weekend.